Hi, we are live. Hey, gang. It's Dr. Steve, and I am coming to you from the center of the world right now, literally. I mean, and it feels like it. If you just walk around the streets, you recognize that the world is changing, and it's changing by reallocating, recalibrating around Washington, D.C. It's not the greatest weather out there. It's pretty cold, but I ran into one of our awesome old friends, Cliff MALONEY of Pennsylvania Chase. Cliff, dude, I mean, you're like, you're a superstar to our audience, as you well know, because many of them came out and worked with you to take Pennsylvania and therefore take the nation. I wanted to ask you a question. I'm just going to go straight into it. Has it hit you yet that you didn't just change a state, you didn't just change a country, you changed the world? And that's not even remotely an exaggeration. Look at all the world leaders who are coming. The vice president of China, Xi's number 2 guy, is coming to this inauguration. Javier Milei arrived last night from Argentina. All these from leaders from Europe. We've never seen this before. You did not just change a state or a nation. You changed the world. Has that hit you yet?
No. It's funny. One, it was everybody, right? I do want to give credit to, my whole team, all the volunteers, all the paid ballot chasers, tons of organizations. But I think it was about having a strategy, right? Having a focus. It probably didn't hit me, at least partially, until I got here to DC. I think a lot of it was everybody saying on the left, our ground game was fake. Our ground game was AstroTurf.
Right.
None of it was real. I'm not saying I believed it, but it was kind of like, man, they pound you over the head pushing this legacy media narrative.
It does make you think or reconsider, right?
And then you win.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, we won.
They were full of it.
and then you're celebrating the win, right? And then you're, thanking all the supporters, thanking all of your people that got out and did the work. And then you're recapping and you're analyzing the numbers. When the data hit from PA, we've only had the data. We still don't have all of the data, right? So we're analyzing what worked, because winning, a lot of times you forget to do your evaluation, right? What worked, what didn't work, what do you do more of, what do you do less of? When you lose, you absolutely are forced to do that, right? But I think that's the biggest thing now is let it soak in. Let's enjoy it. We have saved the world. I do think that this is a monumental moment. I mean, if she would have won, me and you could talk about that for days, but she didn't. And so we should celebrate it. But my big message is we won the battle. But as I've said in your show before, the war is far from over. And I think we're going to see, not in the next 4 years, but in the next 100 days, where do we go as a country? Are we really going to have this Doge versus the swamp battle? And does Doge win or does the swamp win? And that's, I think, what we all have to have our eye on and take action to make sure we win that one.
It's so fascinating because it's such a historical moment, given the fact that we've just never seen anything quite like this. Generally speaking, when a candidate wins a second term, they're lame duck on day one. They've spent all their political capital in their first term, very little left in second term, and literally within days, within the first 100 days, everyone's talking about the next presidential election. Here it's the inversion. He showed up with like no political capital. The RNC didn't know what to do with him back in 2016-17. Ted Cruz hated him. I mean, Glenn Beck spent every show railing against him for like years, 2-3 years or so. I forgot when he put on the MAGA cap. I think it was after the first impeachment or something. I mean, now we're seeing, it's literally like we're not seeing a second term. We're seeing a new term, a term with more political capital, I think we've seen for a Republican since probably Reagan in 1980 or 84 with the 49 state landslide. Are you getting that sense? Are you sensing that this is historic? We're not going to live through this again. JD could rock 4 years from now, but it's not going to be the same as this.
Well, I think the term "the golden age" is very appropriate.
Yeah,
I hope it becomes that, right?
Yeah.
And we get to live that. I think
I think it's also your job to worry and be concerned. You're always, I know, I see it in your eyes. You're always, what can go wrong?
I've been
what
let down so many times by politicians that you kind of get trained to do that.
Right.
I think in a weird way, so many things had to go wrong. You know, for the Christian viewers out there, which I assume are a lot of them, you know, I think it's a little godly that we lost in 2020.
Yes.
It gave us 4 years to reflect. You know, we spent the first year complaining about election integrity, which we should have.
Right.
We spent the next couple years, you know, kind of preparing, right? What is the plan? How do we rebuild this thing? How do we play by the rules to win? But then how do we also take down the swamp? I was here in 2016, right? I came to the inauguration. It was nothing like this.
Yeah.
They were handing out tickets like they were candy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because a lot of people were anti-Trump. Nobody thought he could win. And it was kind of like he's shocking the entire world. And then by the time inauguration came, it was like we still couldn't believe Donald Trump's going to be president.
Right.
And so I think you had all of these people that are now here. I mean, spend time, you know, walking around, even the Uber drivers.
Yeah.
But when you're talking to people here, this isn't the normal Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Right? I spent a couple years living here, hated it.
Yeah.
95%
Democrat, right?
Right. It's just, you know, it's not representative of America.
No.
But right now,
yeah,
with the 100 to 200,000 patriots that are here in the city, it is a new era.
Yeah.
It is a new time, and this is nothing like 16, obviously not like 2020. And I think you're probably right. I think that this is something, I'm 33 years old. This is probably going to be a moment unlike no other in American politics. Even if, like you said, Trump crushes it, JD crushes it, it's just such a comeback story that I don't know how you have a guy who gets impeached, who gets shot in the face, you know, just destroyed and kicked off every
38 felonies or whatever it was.
That then comes back and the American people say, that's our guy.
That's our guy.
I don't know how you rewrite that.
Yeah. No, that's well put. He's supposed to do a slew of, I think, 100 EOs tomorrow, all centered around things like, of course, border security. We're going to unleash the Viking warrior king Tom Homan tomorrow, which would be all right. Because if he was alive a 1,000 years ago, he'd be a Viking skull crusher. I'm convinced of it. And then he's going to be doing mass deportations, drill baby drill. He's already talked about an EO to kind of end the trans insanity and restore women's sports and protect children and so forth. So border, economy, culture. I was just reading virtually every one of the EOs has about 70% approval rating behind it. It looks like the left went so far left that they abandoned a new majority, and you helped to swoop in and grab that majority. You talked to a lot of people in Pennsylvania leading up to November 5th. Did you sense a new sort of supermajority forming? What were people talking about when you went door to door?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between a conversation with a diehard conservative Trump Republican, right? And a lot of these folks that we modeled as potential Trump voters, right? Whether they were soft Democrats, but it was mainly independents or people who didn't really report that they were in a party. And I mean, look, the Trump campaign, I am typically the biggest critic of political consultants and some of these messaging
and rightly
folks.
so.
But I think they got it right on a lot of the trans stuff, right? I mean, that clip of her saying that she wanted to pay for transgender surgeries of convicted inmates, like no sane person, I don't care if you're far left even.
Exactly, right.
You would see that. And so I think that the new supermajority to me is the working class. Rational working class Americans, the left. I don't know what their strategy is going to be to get them back. Phil Murphy just did his State of the State. You should watch it.
And he's the governor of Jersey.
He just triples down. They learn nothing.
Wow.
It's just, you know, it's more DEI. It's more woke. And it's like, they're not getting this mandate.
Right.
But the people are with us. So this new majority, I love it. It's going to be a problem for them. The elite Democrats are too stupid to understand. They're going to listen to their donors. They're going to listen to these woke folks. And we're just going to keep building our majority.
Yeah.
One note on the EOs. I'm really glad Charlie Kirk just put out a tweet that Trump is going to pardon, I think over 100 of these J6, maybe even 1,000. It was some number, but it's specific. I do not want a blanket pardon. This idea that you're going to pardon some of these feds that were there, and just kind of end up pipe bomb at the DNC.
True.
We need to dig in.
What
to
really
uncover
happened?
The truth.
Yeah.
And the blanket pardon would just kind of make all of it go away.
That's
so be
interesting.
Specific.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, because I had thought he was just going to do a blanket pardon, just largely because I thought 1,700 pardons would be too difficult to go through, just practically speaking. But you're bringing up a great point. There was way too much ambiguity there, and way too many nefarious forces involved in that we're finding out. And wrapped up into that. And you do not want a blanket pardon that could end up actually sweeping it all under the rug, legally speaking. If I were to ask you just personally, what are you most excited about in this rise in gold? So let's take away all the trepidation that's been built up over the years, and let's just imagine it's all going to come true. Your wildest dreams will come true. What are you most excited about?
If I was king for a day, or as Trump said, dictator on
day one. Just one day.
I'd like to see at least 6 agencies gutted, maybe 10.
Ooh, you're going Javier Milei, Ron Paul.
Afuera with the magnets going off the wall, yes. I'd probably cut 30 to 40% of the federal bureaucrats. I would probably do a 10% cut across the board.
Nice.
But that means discretionary and non-discretionary. Which means we're going to have to talk
entitlements.
We're going to have to talk about some of those. I don't think these things will happen, but I'm telling you what I'd like to. I'd probably pull our troops out of 40 of the 120 countries that we are subsidizing their foreign policy. It's just wild to me. We're $36 trillion in debt. Let's take them off those borders and put them here on our border if we're going to spend the money. And I think I'd like to see true getting rid of the woke and the DEI across the board in these things. I do think there's an argument to be made. You move a lot of these agencies that we do keep out of D.C.
That's part of the dismantling of the administrative state.
The swamp environment, I don't think anybody, unless you've been here and understand kind of the culture, and it's a good old boys club, we got to break that up.
Oh, definitely.
So I think specific to federal, I'd like to see some of these radical things, but I think you're going to see a battle. I will continue to say this. You will have Doge and you will have the swamp. And everybody at home, the people you think that will be with Doge and the people you think will be with the swamp, you will be surprised.
Wow.
Because the swamp has, look, you don't become Speaker of the House, you don't become the majority leader easily. There is a path, and that path includes the swamp. So yes, I think that Johnson has an opportunity. I think Thune has an opportunity. They could create a legacy here. If they want to buck the swamp and actually go with the people, they could do some radical reforms that could change the trajectory of the country. They could become historic majority leaders and speakers. But that's going to take a lot of courage. And it's also going to take pressure from the grassroots and from people throughout the country. But that's the chess game we're now playing.
We saw it a bit, don't you think, with the CR, the original CR? Well, go for it.
I will say this. That actually got me excited. Because right away you saw the swamp will swamp. And X, Grok, and these AI folks were able to run that. It's the first time that we have been able to push back on their playbook of delay. Got to go home for Christmas. Got to go home for recess. And the people spoke up and said, this is not what we just voted for.
It's no longer status quo.
But the trick is going to be, how do we continue to keep that pressure up?
The one cool thing about that too was, did you notice how it totally sidelined the legacy media? The legacy media was not even remotely part of that 36-hour conversation. It was entirely driven by techno-populism, entirely driven by a new internet technocosm that allowed patriots all over the country to rise up, again, totally irrespective of the legacy media, very much like email and texting bypasses the post office. We were able to bypass that with Elon sort of as the front man, and they I mean, to say they collapsed would be a compliment, I mean, they literally fell on their knees saying, sorry took a 1,000-page bill, turned into a 100-page. It was astonishing. And that may be the power of Doge. The power isn't Elon, Vivek, or what. The power is the people, literally, because of this technological advantage we had that in many ways we didn't have in 2016. Twitter was censoring us at the time. So
here's how I break down the chamber with Republicans, and this is both in the House and the Senate. And by the way, this is the same thing in states across the country. Typically, you have about 10% of the Republicans that actually are fighters. Right? People you and me would agree with, we would respect. They're there for all the right reasons, and they tell the special interests and the lobbyists to get the hell out of their office.
Right.
Then you have about 10% that represent leadership, right? And that 10%, they're not necessarily always just the speaker and the whip, but there's 10% that are kind of in the room where it happens. And they're the people that are making the decisions. And then you have 80%. They're Republicans, they run as conservatives, and a lot of them are good people.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
They wouldn't hit the water if they fell out of a boat, and they're just trying to figure out, okay, I got to get reelected. What do I do, Cliff?
Hold on, I got to write that down.
So the power of usually the 10% that are righteous, it's tough.
Yeah.
Because you're not offering anything
Yeah.
for their reelection.
Yeah.
You're just saying, hey, I think the people, but the people don't hear about the vote. The people don't know about the vote. This is changing that equation.
Yeah.
Right? This is
Yeah.
changing it because it's giving that 80% that all they care about is getting elected, getting reelected, and
Right.
getting elected to higher office.
Right.
There's three things that motivate
And seeing
them.
their portfolio grow with every
Right.
reelection, right?
That's a whole bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's happening is they do react to the environment.
They do.
And we are changing the environment
Yeah.
with this alternative media, these different
Yeah.
lines of communication, and they are getting scared.
Yeah.
The people most scared right now are
Yeah.
those 80% of Republicans
Yeah.
that for years
Yeah.
have been able to just kind of
Yeah.
slide by, do what they're told to do, and their constituents never know about it. That
Right.
ends
Right.
now.
I love it. One of the things that, and by the way, Mike, if there's some questions, are we getting questions from the audience?
We're getting a few.
Yeah.
We have some super chats, so or just comments.
Oh, good, good.
We have from Reaction of Puerto Rico. If you think about it, Trump has 8 years of experience as president. His first term and 4 years fighting the deep state. He has become the wise warrior.
I love it. Yeah. So he's become the wise warrior. 8 years of experience. That's awesome. Really piggyback on what you were saying. Forget who it was who analyzed it this way. Republicans are inherently dysfunctional because they're made up of two mutually exclusive dynamics. One side wants to cut spending. The other side wants to grow it in their own pet projects, right? So they'll hide behind the veneer of, I want to cut spending, but they want to increase it in the military-industrial complex, whatever it is. Whereas the Democrats 100% just want to grow government. So that's in a sense why Pelosi can always come in and look like she's got a completely unified party, whereas Republicans always look just so dysfunctional. So because they have these two radically different types. You've got Ron Paul on one side, you've got Mitch McConnell on the other. Forget about it. Those are two mutually exclusive worldviews. Whereas Democrats don't. I mean, you could have your radical AOC and your more non-radical whatever Joe Manchin, but they're still going to want to grow government. All of them. So that's another difference. How? Kind of wrapping this all up, and we'll try to get another question if you guys have one for Cliff. How has your life changed since November 5th? So you guys, we're chatting behind the scenes. This guy is like, you are one of the most sought after fellows I know right now because you changed the way the game's played. You had a theory of how the game's played, but then you put it you made it happen.
Well, to be fair, the whole door knocking tactic, right? This idea that, Democrats have paid door knockers and volunteers and Republicans have volunteers, right? And it's like, hold on.
Right.
And
Right.
Justin Grice, who is here with us, my COO, Justin and me looked at the left's literature. And this was years ago, right? And I've said this on your show, and it was like, I don't understand. In 2016, I could not understand this because we were running Rand Paul's Senate reelect.
Mm-hmm.
And we were seeing these paid door knockers on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't understand why Republicans weren't doing this. And then we looked at the literature, and it was like the most impactful way, dollar for dollar, when you compare everything, door knocking to phone calls to TV to radio to mailers to digital, it was just off the charts that was the best impact you could have for the dollars you were spending. And so we've always kind of had this battle. But then, as you know, when they changed all these rules to allow the ballot harvesting, to allow the ballot chasing, we kind of ramped up and said, okay, we're going to pick up some of these battles. But then I had to claw my way against the consultant class that wanted their kickbacks.
Right.
Well, now we've proven it.
Yeah.
Right. Now we have a proof of concept. So what is my life like now? We've got people in Virginia calling us. We've got people in New Jersey calling us. We've got people calling us from Rhode Island, all these different states.
I hear you got some international calls too, didn't you?
Yes. People in Ireland are asking me to go back and have some fun in other states.
Yeah. It's amazing.
But it's we're going to continue to grow. I mean, I'll announce here to your show, we are going to double down in Pennsylvania.
Cool.
So we do believe that we need to have what I call permanent infrastructure.
Yeah.
Josh Shapiro was back out 2 weeks ago because remember, all of these requests reset. So you have to request a mail-in ballot, and that resets on January 1. So, I mean, it's constant. And we have 9,000 judge of elections races.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of school board races, some mayoral races. And so people say, well, I don't get as excited as I did for the presidential race.
Right.
It's like we need permanent infrastructure.
Yes.
So we're going to double down in PA. The other thing to announce here in your show is we are moving our group Citizens Alliance. We're going to expand into New Hampshire.
Ooh,
so we are going to go on offense. It's one of the only states that Harris won that we feel we can make an impact in. So Citizens Alliance in PA did the PA Chase. We're moving Citizens Alliance to expand in New Hampshire. And look, this is all about 2028 and then thinking backwards. But we cannot take a year off.
Right.
I say to people like, well, what are you going to do? I said, you're missing the point. It's not what we're going to do.
Right.
What is the left doing?
Right, exactly.
And if we're not matching those tactics, we're not going to be able to win in 2028.
Right.
So those are the places that we are going to expand and actually own our brand, PA and New Hampshire. We're looking at helping in some of these other states. But my point to a lot of these states is, listen, in PA, I had to go in and raise the money and then build and execute the program.
It was a total grassroots.
So I tell people, I will go into states, but you got to raise the money.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of these, I'm not saying that to grassroots individuals. I'm saying that to groups that already have the money or like a certain PAC that already exists and they're going to spend 20 million. I'm like, just peel off 3 to 5 million and we'll do it at cost to run the PA Chase in your state.
Yeah.
But I think the breakthrough of the right understanding a ground game and the grassroots, I think we are at that moment. I don't think there's any turning back. It's just continuing to be 10 years behind the left.
Right.
But now we're there. It's been 10 years and we understand we must have a powerful paid door-to-door program that is paired with volunteers at the grassroots level.
And then you broke through the wall of the advisor class. That's so cool.
Check your texts because you can read the question.
Ooh, look at that. Oh, my text. All right. We got some questions for you, my friend, from our audience. We need to teach the Puerto Rican people what being a Republican really is. Democrats had it all too easy, need to do something. Does anyone want to get something started? So I'm assuming in Puerto Rico.
My big piece of advice there is really define not just what a Republican is, but when people say, we want good people, us at Citizens Alliance, we always have a pledge. So anytime we endorse a candidate, we encourage them or we mandate that they fill out and sign the pledge. And the pledge can be different things, different levels of government. But it's good to just kind of understand, both as an organization and the candidate, what is it that you expect them to do once they get in, right? So in 2025, we're going to try to elect 1,000 judge of elections in PA. We want to have an election integrity grassroots army that we can coordinate with, we can talk to, we can direct. And really, my big thing is I want to make PA and New Hampshire the red wall so that Democrats can't win nationally again for decades.
Permanently boxed out of power.
But specific to that question, I always encourage people, because what you think a Republican is and what I think a Republican is, for you and me, is the same thing.
Right.
But in this town, it's very, even what a conservative is. So I always say the labels are okay, but drill down with very concrete statements that you're transparent with the people you're trying to elect or the people you're trying to recruit. What is it that you want them to stand for, and then hold them accountable when you do get them in the position.
Right.
Which is, a lot of people struggle with that part, but you have to do that.
This is another one from Upishut from across the pond in Europe. How much of the spiritual part do you sense in DC? I'm assuming he's saying sort of a spiritual shift or spiritual change in DC.
I think the win was one thing, but I think when Trump got shot, I think that to me was a moment for a lot of people. I think specifically because I think, you know, Trump's faith, something that I don't think he really talked about much, you know, when he was coming on the scene in 16, even in 20. But I think that Butler event, I think that was
in Pennsylvania.
That was that was the spiritual turning point. That I mean, yes, the inauguration will be a big moment, a deep moment. I think Christians will come together and it will be a moment. But I think him turning his head really is what set that trajectory for people to kind of touch base with their faith. But I think even walking around, just the hope, you know, just the positive attitude.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah.
I mean, even seeing a lot of these celebrities get in line. Jeff Bezos, I
Yeah.
mean, like Mark Zuckerberg, right? I mean, and people can say, oh, well, they're just, you know, reacting and they're trying to protect, but they're reacting. Right? People are all moving in the direction of, hey, maybe this is the new way forward.
Right.
Maybe the people have spoken.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it. Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, it's perfectly justifiable to be cynical and flippant towards Zuckerberg's sudden change of heart since November 6th. Sure, got it. But that's what happens when you have leaders who bring in a new epoch, a new paradigm shift. Everyone ends up aligning around it, and because they don't want to be on the losing team, get on the Trump train or get derailed. Nobody wants to get derailed or run over. And to me, it's just proof that we didn't. When I say we won, we didn't just win an election. We won a culture. We won the moment. We won the time. And you were on the front lines of it, my friend. Cliff is extremely humble, and he will always, I notice, he will always deflect compliment. But, you know, if it's true, then somebody's got to say it. So, Cliff, you're amazing. You know, I say it every time you're on, but I know our whole audience would want me to tell you just how appreciative we are for everything that you did. Yeah, cool. I'm getting another question. Here I have a beautiful moment, and you're interrupting me with a question from these guys. Thanks a lot, guys. Here you go. Let me get. That's right. New Hampshire has weird laws. So this is from Ventus Bruma. New Hampshire has weird laws about residency and voting. You should look into that if you're going to work there. Do you know about that?
Yeah, well, let me deliver a secret here. So when I say we're expanding in New Hampshire, we've been in New Hampshire.
Ooh.
Okay, but this whole cycle I focused on PA because we thought that was the way to win the White House, right? In terms of publicly coming on your show, getting people excited, the branding of the PA Chase as its own program. How do you think Trump came within 5 points of winning New Hampshire?
Right.
Somebody I know knocked 100,000 doors in New Hampshire. But like I said, we don't push it because I want to focus on things where I know I can win. But we targeted a bunch of state house seats in New Hampshire this cycle. So yes, very familiar with the rules. There's a lot of things we're working on. Kelly Ayotte, however you say her name, she won the governor's mansion. So we have a great relationship with the speaker, Sherm. The majority leader, Jason Osborne, is a great friend of ours because we run our pledge program in New Hampshire. Right. But now we're publicly saying, working 2028 backwards, we actually want to be held accountable to winning the state. But it's probably one of the best states in terms of election integrity. It's all one-day voting.
Yeah.
A lot of paper ballots throughout the state.
Yeah.
So yes, we're familiar, but I think it's a great question and something that is good feedback that we have to continue to monitor some of them because some of the registration things are a little odd.
Yeah. Have you? And one last one. Since you have mastered the art of election, have you thought of throwing your own hat in the ring?
Well, you know what's hilarious? my residency is technically in Matt Gaetz' district.
Oh,
People laugh
Matt
about
Gaetz,
this,
huh?
but when Matt, there's a special for his seat, and it was actually pretty. How do I put this? I appreciated the amount of people that reached out and were like, hey, and it's like, I'd rather change the shape of the country. I'd rather change the shape of certain states that I believe in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out, but when you've won, we're up to 410 state races now.
Wow.
I could add one federal race now, which is great, the White House. You create a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
The other problem I have is I do primaries. We've taken out 5 of the 6 Republicans that we've challenged in the Pennsylvania legislature in the last 2 cycles.
Nice.
That doesn't create a lot of friends.
Right.
Yes, we all come together in the general because the Republic's on the line. But when you play in these primaries, when somebody has their name on the ballot, that's their legacy.
Yeah.
And when you beat them, they take it personally.
Right.
It's not personal for me.
Right.
If you vote as an America First conservative and you believe in liberty, great.
Right.
I'll defend you all day.
Right.
If you tell me you're going to do that, and then you're a scumbag when you get in,
backstab. Yeah.
I don't have any time for
We
that.
have no time for that.
So I wouldn't rule it out. I know that sounds like a political answer, but it would really, really have to be something that I feel like would pull me away.
Yeah, I see you doing. I track exactly what you're saying. You're an infrastructure guy. You're a data guy. You're a visionary guy. And let's be blunt. I think a House seat is too small for you right now. It is. It's way too small for you. I think you're thinking bigger than like we get asked the question when Trump is done with this term, what do you think? Should he run for Senate in Florida? And I'm thinking, that guy walks into the Senate chamber. He is not a senator.
Right.
That is not a Senate. I mean, he's barely a president. We do see what is it? The emperor god, meme around it. It's just you have to match your calling with the social structure that wherein that calling can flourish. And you found it. I mean, you've clearly found it. So yeah, just continue changing the world. And then if you want to retire, go into politics or something akin to that. Where can people continue to keep up with your work, support you? You're gonna need resources. Obviously, our audience loves you. A lot of them volunteered with Pennsylvania Chase. Well, what's the best place to kind of keep in touch and support?
Yeah, so on X, just at Maloney is where I'll be giving live updates as we're launching this New Hampshire thing. Right now, my biggest fear is that people will say, "Hey, we've won. Good luck.
Yeah,
we supported you last year."
And all,
That's my biggest fear. So if folks want to double down to help us build this permanent infrastructure, it's still phchase.com. As always, they can sponsor a ballot chaser for $175. It covers a whole day. Every penny goes towards the ballot chaser, their stipend, their food, their housing. But that's the way, is for folks, if they can become recurring givers, even if it's just 20 or 50 bucks a month, that helps us tremendously. But I'm really hoping that the activists and the grassroots double down and come with us on this journey. I think we've proven our success. But phchase.com, we appreciate the Turley Show because, the Turley Talks Army, I will call them. Really, I mean this, Steve, and I've said it before on your show. I've told it to Ralph, this is not a show like the others I do, where we talk, we all get excited, and then, we move on to the next thing. Your audience showed up. We would get hundreds of donations from $5 to $1,000 every time I come on. I mean, your audience takes action. They are committed to the cause. And I just want to say to the audience and you, I appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you. Dude, sit back and enjoy the savoring of your victory. You earned it more than anyone I know. So
I appreciate that.
You bet, bro. Cliff Maloney, stay in touch with him. Click on the link below. Support Pennsylvania Chase. Support everything these guys are doing. I'm just so thankful for everything you've done. God bless.